My wife of 8 years cheated with her college sweetheart. When I confronted her, she laughed and said she only married me for my money, so I drained every account and left her penniless. Her ex dumped her the moment he realized she brought nothing to the table. Hello, Reddit I plus here. My name is Ryan Blake, I'm 36 years old and I used to believe love could survive anything, even deception. But that belief died the night I discovered my wife, Lydia, in our bed with another man. 8 years of marriage, 8 years of loyalty, late nights, shared dreams, and the quiet hope that I'd found my forever. And all of it turned out to be a performance. I met Lydia when I was 28, freshly promoted at a growing software company in Austin. I wasn't rich, but I was finally stable, something that used to matter to me far more than money. She was 26, radiant, funny, and full of energy. She worked as a personal stylist, though she often complained her job didn't pay much. I didn't care. I was mesmerized by her confidence. When she smiled, it felt like the world tilted just a little in her direction. We started dating fast, dinners that stretched past midnight, road trips where we sang along to every song, whispered promises under starlit skies. She said I made her feel safe. I said she made me feel alive. It felt like fate, or maybe the start of a carefully written lie. We got married 2 years later, in a small vineyard just outside the city. Lydia wanted a grand wedding with a horse-drawn carriage and a designer gown, but I convinced her to keep it modest. She smiled and said, "You're right. The future is more important than the wedding." I thought that meant she shared my values. Now I know it meant she was already planning for the future, just not one with me in it. The first few years were good, or at least I believed they were. Lydia quit her job 6 months after we got married, saying she wanted to focus on creating a warm home and building a life together. I supported her. I thought that's what a good husband did. She spent her days redecorating, shopping, and posting photos of our perfect life online. I spent mine working overtime to pay for it. It started small, comments that cut deeper than she realized. "Why don't you dress like the men at the club? Ryan, you should really think about getting a better car. Appearances matter. Maybe you could ask for another bonus. We can't keep living like this forever." I brushed them off as normal marital disagreements, but deep down, something felt off. It was like she was grading me against someone invisible, a ghost of a man I didn't even know existed. 3 months ago, my life turned into a movie I never wanted to watch. I was working from home on a huge project that demanded my full attention. For nearly 2 weeks, I barely left my office. Lydia seemed understanding, bringing me meals, kissing my head, telling me to keep changing the world. I thought she was proud of me. She was just making sure I stayed distracted. When the project finally wrapped, I wanted to surprise her, take her to her favorite rooftop restaurant, the one overlooking the lake. But when I called her, her phone went straight to voicemail. No reply. Something in my gut twisted. I decided to wait for her at home. I took a shower, put on the suit she said made me look like the man she fell in love with. I was ready to remind her why we worked. Then I heard it. Laughter. Soft, familiar. Coming from upstairs. At first, I smiled. I thought maybe she was watching one of those romantic comedies she loved. Then I heard his voice. Male, deep, confident, and her laughter. That breathless kind she hadn't used with me in years. I froze. Every sound felt amplified. My heartbeat, my breath, the faint creak of the floor as I climbed the stairs. When I opened the door to our bedroom, time stopped. There she was. Lydia, my wife, tangled in silk sheets with a man I'd never seen before. He scrambled up, mumbling apologies, trying to grab his clothes. Lydia just stared at me. Not with fear, not with guilt, but with annoyance, as if I'd interrupted her at the wrong time. I demanded to know who he was. She sighed and said, "His name's Aaron. We dated in college, Aaron." The ghost I'd been competing with all along. She didn't deny anything, didn't cry, didn't even try to lie. Instead, she said words that scorched my soul. "Ryan, I think you deserve to know the truth. I never really loved you. I married you because you were stable. You could give me the life I wanted." Aaron couldn't. Not back then. I stared at her, my world collapsing piece by piece. She went on, her tone cold and casual. "Aaron's finally doing well now. He's producing music for real artists, making serious money, and now that he can take care of me, I don't need to pretend anymore." Pretend. That word hit me harder than the betrayal itself. Everything. Our vows, our memories, every "I love you" had been a script in her performance for security. I spent that night in a hotel, replaying every moment of our marriage, every compliment, every fight, every smile. It all looked different now, like watching an old movie and finally catching the hidden clues. The next morning, I called Maya, a friend who was a lawyer. She referred me to a divorce specialist. Harper Lynn, a woman with a reputation for being ruthless and brilliant. When Harper heard the story, she didn't flinch. She asked one question: "Do you have proof?" That's when I remembered the new home security cameras. We had installed them after a string of neighborhood break-ins, one in the hallway outside our bedroom. When I checked the footage, it felt like watching a slow-motion car crash I couldn't stop. Erin had been there, dozens of times, while I was at work, while I was sleeping downstairs, while she told me she was out shopping or visiting her sister. There were videos of her on calls, laughing, saying things like, "He's too focused on work to notice anything. Once Erin gets that promotion, I'm done pretending." My stomach turned. Harper looked through the footage and said quietly, "Good, you're about to take back control of your life." My silent revenge. Following her advice, I froze every joint account that same day. I transferred all funds into a new account in my name and canceled every credit card Lydia had. When she realized what I'd done, she exploded, crying, screaming, then threatening. She demanded I be reasonable, that I at least let her keep the house. I told her she'd get what the court decided, nothing more. 2 days later, Erin dumped her. Apparently, he hadn't realized how deep her financial dependency ran. He didn't want to play dad to a gold digger. In less than a week, Lydia went from living in luxury to crashing on her friend's couch. The divorce finalized a month ago. I kept the house. She walked away with a small settlement, barely enough to cover a few months of rent. A friend told me she's working part-time again, trying to rebuild her image. I don't hate her anymore. I don't even feel anger, just pity. Because the truth is, she lost more than money. She lost the one person who ever loved her without conditions. As for me, I'm rebuilding. Slowly, quietly, and honestly, this time. The pain is still there, but it's cleaner now. No more lies, no more pretending. I've learned that sometimes, life has to burn everything down before you can see what was real in the ashes. She married me for stability. She cheated for excitement. And when she lost both, she learned the difference between love and lifestyle. A full year passed before I saw Lydia again. 12 months, 52 weeks of silence, 365 days of trying to remember who I was before she hollowed out my heart and filled it with her lies. After the divorce, I'd moved through the stages of grief like chapters in a book I never wanted to read. Disbelief, rage, bitterness, and finally, reluctant peace. I filled my days with work, therapy, long runs by the lake, and the quiet company of my dog, Jasper. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. For the first time in years, real was enough. I never thought I'd hear from her again. It started with a text. One gray Saturday morning while I was making coffee, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't saved, though my gut knew exactly who it was. "Ryan, it's me. Please don't block me. I just need to talk." I stared at it for a long time, the steam from my mug rising between us like a ghost. I didn't reply, but the messages kept coming. "I'm sorry for everything. I made a terrible mistake. Please, I just want to see you." One conversation, part of me wanted to delete them, block her, move on. Another part, the wounded part that still remembered how she used to smile, wanted answers. Not closure, just clarity. I agreed to meet her in a public place, a small cafe downtown where we used to go before everything fell apart. She was already there when I arrived. Lydia looked different. The perfectly styled hair was now pulled into a messy bun. The designer bag had been replaced by a scuffed tote. The woman who once demanded luxury now looked like she'd been surviving, not living. When she saw me, she smiled, small and nervous. "Ryan," she said softly, "you look good." I didn't return the compliment. She fiddled with her cup for a while before finally whispering, "I know I don't deserve your time, but..." I needed to say, "I'm sorry, really sorry." Her voice cracked, but I couldn't tell if it was guilt or performance. I'd seen her act before. Her downfall. She told me Erin had left her not long after the divorce. Apparently, he'd been seeing someone else the entire time. When her savings ran out, she moved into a friend's spare room. Then the friend moved away, and Lydia bounced between temp jobs and short-term leases. "I thought money would make me happy," she said quietly, "but I didn't realize how empty it feels when no one actually loves you." I stayed silent. She looked at me, eyes glassy. "I was wrong about you, Ryan. You were the only person who ever cared about me for real. I just didn't know how to appreciate it." I wanted those words to matter, but they didn't. They came too late. She'd turned my heart into a battlefield, and there was no rebuilding on scorched earth. Still, part of me pitied her. The same part that used to rush to fix things, to provide, to rescue. But I didn't owe her that anymore. The offer. Then came the real reason she wanted to see me. She took a shaky breath and said, "I'm trying to start over, but it's hard. I can't find stable work. My credit's ruined, and rent's impossible. If you could just help me with a small loan." Just until I get back on my feet, that's when I finally laughed. Not cruelly, but with the kind of disbelief that only comes when life repeats itself like a bad joke. Lydia, I said quietly, you used me for money once. You won't do it again. Her face crumpled. Please, I'm not that person anymore. You're exactly that person, I said. You just ran out of people willing to believe your story. The truth hit her harder than any insult could. She looked down, tears slipping into her coffee. For a moment, I almost felt bad, but then I remembered the sleepless nights, the humiliation, the emptiness she left behind. I stood up, placed enough cash on the table to cover both drinks, and said, I hope you find peace, Lydia, but it won't come from me. Closure. As I walked out of that cafe, I felt the last thread between us snap. Not with anger, but with release. I realized forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in, it's about freeing yourself from the weight of who they were. That night, I went home and deleted her number for good. Then, for the first time in years, I opened my laptop, not for work, but for myself. I started writing about what happened, not as a victim, but as someone who survived. I called it The Price of Pretending. I posted it anonymously, thinking no one would ever read it. Within days, thousands of people did. Messages poured in, from men and women who'd lived the same kind of betrayal, who said my words helped them feel less alone. That was when I understood. Pain can destroy you, or it can redefine you. You just have to choose which one it'll be. A year later, again. Today, my life looks nothing like it did before. I still live in the same house, but it feels different now. Quieter, warmer, mine. I rebuilt my business, started mentoring younger engineers, and even adopted another rescue dog. And, yes, I met someone new. Her name's Sophie, a freelance illustrator who lives 2 streets away. She's kind, grounded, and doesn't care what car I drive or what I earn. She laughs at my bad cooking and brings peace instead of chaos. Sometimes I catch myself waiting for the other shoe to drop, but it never does. Because this time, I'm not chasing perfection. I'm choosing truth. Lydia once said, you can't build love without security. She was right, but she misunderstood what security meant. It isn't money or status. It's trust, honesty, and the quiet comfort of knowing you're wanted for who you are, not what you provide. So when people ask how I moved on, I tell them this. I didn't just survive a broken marriage. I outgrew a life built on lies. And sometimes, that's the real victory.